What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Harrison, and today we are talking about the Phil Spencer interview that that Kind of Funny's XCast had. I thought it was a really great interview. With all the downfalls that Xbox has had in the recent years, Phil Spencer is a really likable head of Xbox, right? He's very charismatic, and during the interview, I mean, he was very honest about, you know, the kind of woes around Xbox and how the, you know, fans of Xbox are very concerned and you know, just disappointed in general. And I've got to get him credit because you won't see a lot of CEOs and people in his position come on a podcast like that and know that he is going to get asked really intense questions. And now I know that this, you know, and they said it during the podcast that they had already scheduled this interview, but PR could have definitely came on and said, hey, you know, Phil's not going to come on today, you know, and leave it at it is, but he decided to come on. And I thought that was really awesome. And again, it was just a really honest interview, and you could tell that he was frustrated. You know, he mentioned it, you know, in the interview quite a few times. You could definitely tell he was a bit emotional about everything that's been going on. You know, they started out the year right with Hi-Fi Rush, and that developer direct kind of set expectations, and then Redfall comes out. You know, it's not 60 frames per second at launch, and the game is just not good. You know, I did play about an hour and a half of it. It ran pretty bad. Like, there's multiple times where the frame rate dropped into like the single digits. The gunplay is just not fun. The AI is terrible. Even if they fixed all that, there's just nothing really appealing about what Arcane has made with this game. You know, the multiplayer, I did play it just single player, but the multiplayer looks like it's outdated as far as matchmaking goes. The fact that you can't, you know, if you start from the beginning with someone else online, the other person that is not the host will not get credit towards the missions. That's just very archaic design at this point. So, you know, Redfall deserves all the flack that it's got. You know, it's not a great game. You know, Phil came and talked about how, you know, Redfall was already in development when they acquired Bethesda. You know, and he was very upfront about how he wants to give his teams creative freedom and all this stuff, and that's great. You know, I think that's very important to, just because you're owned by a giant corporation, that, you know, they don't want you to make a specific style of game. They want to give you the creative freedom. So this was already what Arcane wanted to do, and maybe, you know, Xbox should have stepped in at some point and said, okay, you know, we get your guys' vision, but maybe we should shut this down, right? Because I would rather just not have this game than it come out and add to the frustration of gamers. You know, Xbox people that are wanting these first party games. You know, it's the first party $70 Xbox game to come out, and it's just not worth it. You know, I don't think there's been a lot of games that have been worth $70. You know, since the next gen has happened, but especially this game. This game is just awful. It's just not great. It's uninspiring. It feels uninspired. It just, you know, I hate to bad talk a developer or anything like that, but it just feels like the creativity wasn't there. So enough for Redfall. I wanted to briefly talk about that because obviously that was kind of the main crux of the interview. But, you know, I agree a lot about what Phil said in the interview. You know, he mentioned that, you know, Xbox at this point is not trying to out-console or outsell Nintendo and PlayStation. PlayStation and Nintendo have just such a stronghold in the industry with their consoles, and Xbox really, since Phil took over, and I really liked what Phil has done with Xbox, you know, coming in there, you know, doing the Game Pass thing, opening up different avenues for gamers to come in and not have to buy the console itself, but they can come in on the PC, you know, cloud gaming. You can do it on your phone, you can do it on your tablet, you know, you can do it on your TV. So they came in, they have a great ecosystem for Xbox gamers. You know, that's what their main point is. You know, that's their main point of Xbox at this moment, right? Is to create this giant ecosystem and get everybody in, and you know, have a giant family. But it does feel like a little bit like Xbox, the console itself, is being pushed aside or left behind, because, and they asked that in the interview, you know, and at some point towards the end, and this is where I really started to kind of disagree with Phil, and maybe this was not a thought out statement, that maybe this was just something that he just came up like with the top of the head, you know, top of the dome, about maybe his kind of venting his frustrations, because this interview did feel a lot of like Phil venting his frustrations about everything that's been going on, you know, obviously blaming himself, blaming the team, you know, they got to get more involved. But he mentioned that there isn't a world where a Starfield can come out and it'd be an 11 out of 10 game and it won't sell consoles. He doesn't think, he said that they lost the most important generation, which was the Xbox One, PS4 generation, and so many games were sold digitally. That was like kind of the start of the digital era for, you know, for gaming, and they lost that generation, and now everyone's in their specific ecosystems and they're not going to jump ship to Xbox. So this is where I started to really disagree with his sentiment, because we got to look at the head dog in the picture, right? Nintendo. You know, they've sold the most consoles this generation is the Switch, right? So, and I think it's sold over 122 million at this point. So insane numbers. You go back and look at the Wii U. Wii U sold like maybe 13 million units lifetime. It was a horrible. The system itself wasn't horrible. I thought the way they tried to market it was terrible. There's a lot of confusion in the gaming industry. Is it an actual new console? Is it not? You know, when they first had that trailer, and you know there was zero third party support. They had a lot of great first party stuff, but the console sold like terrible. You know, it sold horribly. So for them to go from the Wii U, right? And granted, there was no digital crossover. Everything that you had on the Wii U was on the Wii U. Everything you had on the 3DS was on the 3DS. So they created a new console. They created the Nintendo Switch. No digital marketplace. There was no crossover. So they did that. They had extremely great first-party games. Killer apps is what the game industry usually calls them. I don't know if we even still call that anymore, because... But anyways, killer apps, meaning system sellers, right? Games that are system sellers that gamers will pick up a console because of these games. And it's Zelda, it's Breath of the Wild, it's Mario Odyssey, it's Animal Crossing in 2020. You know, I don't think Nintendo expected Animal Crossing to sell so well, but between the Lite and the Animal Crossing edition that came out, that game alone sold like 30 million copies, and I think it's probably more than that now. And it sold a lot of systems because people were stuck indoors. And you know, granted, that's the boost of like the COVID year. A lot of gaming was up that year, but if Nintendo can do it, I don't see why Microsoft and Xbox cannot. So that's why I don't agree with that statement that there's the main focus is games, right? That's the main focus. If you start putting out super quality games, bring back, you know, put Gear 6 out, you know, you've got your Starfields, you know, you start bringing out Fable and all this other stuff, some really high quality games. You start bringing people into the ecosystem that maybe weren't going to do it before, right? Maybe you have your PlayStation only people, maybe you have your Nintendo only people. And if you put these really amazing games out, yeah, maybe they won't buy a console, right? But you'll get them into the ecosystem with Game Pass, right? Whether it's on PC or, you know, phones or, you know, whatever the case is, right? And also, like, that's kind of the point of the Series S, right? Why have two different SKUs? You have your expensive $500, you know, most powerful console ever SKU, right? That they call it. And then you have the kind of the budget tier, the Series S, that's your, why else was that console created other than for it to be a low entry point to get people into the Xbox ecosystem that still wanted a console. So again, I know that Xbox started last generation horribly, in the Don Matrick era, where they announced the Xbox One. It said it was going to be, online only, and PlayStation, they ate off that, unluckiness and that kind of bad marketing, and they just skyrocketed in sales. But because before that, the 360 generation, the 360 dominated, right? And why did they dominate? Because PlayStation came out, they had a $600 console, they had Halo 3, they had Crackdown as a new IP that was a really good, open world game. A lot of games that weren't first party, but stuff like BioShock, came out on Xbox first. They had the Call of Duty deals, where they got all the DLC first and all this other stuff, map packs, all that good stuff. So there was so much goodwill with the 360, and then they went to the Xbox One and screwed everything up. And then Phil Spencer came in there and has done a great job, I think. But the last few years have just been really bad for first party stuff, and then Redfall comes out. So I get it, and I did not like the end of that interview, because it really felt like a defeatist attitude, that he was willing to accept defeat. But Xbox has so much to look forward to with their games. They have, Hellblade, obviously Starfield's going to be, it's going to be huge. If the game comes out and it's really good, I think that'll get people to jump over, whether they buy a console or not. They'll probably at least try it on PC, get the Game Pass. So again, I enjoyed most of the interview, and I agree with a lot of what Phil had to say, but the stuff about games not selling and our high quality games not selling consoles anymore, that's just straight up wrong. PlayStation's got its God of War, Horizon, Spider-Man. When Spider-Man, 2 comes out in the fall, that's going to sell a ton of PS5s because people are waiting. Because I personally don't think, God of War was cross-gen, so this is like Spider-Man is going to be the true big killer app game for the PS5, and I think it's going to just sell a ton of units. So they've got to have that mindset. I understand that they want to focus on the cloud and Game Pass and other stuff, but they've got to really focus in on the first party stuff. He kind of mentioned that he's seen it online. You've got to ignore the console war Twitter warriors on Twitter. They're horrible. They state that, I've seen a ton of stuff today that, oh, Phil Spencer is going to retire or step down, blah blah blah, or Xbox should die. They should stop making Xbox consoles. And I said in my last video, you don't want one company to have a monopoly on gaming. You don't want one company making the system and controlling everything. That's not what you want. Competition is good, right? As a PlayStation gamer, you shouldn't want Redfall to fail. You should want it to be really good, and that way it pushes PlayStation to make something even better, and then you kind of just jump off of each other. So to come out and say I want something to fail is just crazy absurd. Again, Twitter warriors, it's nonsense. If you know who you are, if you are. And I just wanted to make this video and kind of have my thoughts on the interview, because again, I really like Phil. I really like what he's done with Xbox. I think he's a great head of Xbox. But yeah, we just gotta just focus in on the games, right? And get some games out there that are high quality. Maybe observe your studios a little bit more, get a little bit more involved. Maybe don't give them so much freedom, because Redfall probably, again, like, even if they fix everything, I just don't see the appeal of the game. There's nothing original in there. There's nothing creative. So again, a lot of people are saying it should be delayed, but how much money are you going to put into it when maybe you should just have canceled it? Who knows? Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video of me just ranting on about how I feel about Xbox in general. And again, I play everything. I play Nintendo. I play PlayStation stuff. But everyone's beating down on Xbox all the time. I feel like I gotta I gotta support them a little bit, right? Because everyone's just always so negative, and maybe we'll see some positives in the future. Who knows? Maybe they'll stop making the console and they'll just be like they'll still have their teams, but they just publish everything. They don't actually put anything out on a console. They just put everything on Game Pass across everything else. Who knows what Xbox does in the future? I think they can still get it turned around. And yeah, so hopefully you guys like this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think about what I thought about the interview, what you guys thought about the interview. I'd love to have that conversation. I'm not having any console war nonsense. I don't have the energy for it anymore. Not that I never really did, in the past, but it's just so annoying at this point. I'm tired of seeing it. So I will see you guys in the next video. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Consider subscribing to the channel. I'll let YouTube algorithm pick one of my videos below for you guys to watch. Give it a click, and I hope you enjoy, and I will see you in the next video.